Hi, welcome to Bites by Nancy Moomba. In this video, I'll be showing you how to ice a cake. I'll show you some great techniques and give you hints and tips on how to ice a good cake. A lot of you have been telling me you make mean cakes, but you struggle with the icing. So hopefully, and I'm very confident, by the end of this video, be able to ice a cake for those family weddings or your child's birthday or any events that are coming up that you'd like to make a cake for. So let's get icing. Okay, let's get started. Of course you need your cake, duh. The next thing we have is a knife. We need to cut the cake and fill it. I've got you 3 different types of spatula here. Spatulae, that's a plural. I've got an angled one, 2 angled one with a really small angle, one with a wider angle, and that's 10-inch long. I don't know how long these are, but these are the sort of spatulas you'd find in shops. They do like smaller ones as well, but I thought I'll have a few, then you can pick which one you'd need if you're left-handed, if you're, there's different ones that they have out there. My favorite is this one because it's at an angle, because I'm usually that way, so I like this one. I've also got a scraper. You can find these online or in cake shops. Sometimes supermarkets have them. They do plastic ones as well. The metal ones are better for that nice smooth finish on your cake. I've got you a little comb here just to show you a few other techniques you could do if you were really struggling to get that smooth finish. There's so many scrapers out there, but I thought we'll keep this nice and simple. I've also got a piping bag. I've got 2. And I've got a turntable there, but I've got this non-slip mat to go on my turntable. I've also got a cake drum here. You've seen the silver ones probably. This is a white one. They do them in all sorts of colors. And this is 8-inch. My cake is 7-inch. Ideally, you probably want a few inches more. So I've got it quite tight, but that's because I'm only doing a basic decoration. So if you wanted something bigger, if your decorations are going to be more than the width of this cake board, then you want something a lot bigger. So that's my 7-inch cakes and my 8-inch board. And then I'll just put this on my turntable. And as we go along, I'll show you what to do if you don't have a turntable, because I understand not everybody has them. But if you do want one, they sell them online as well. A lot of them are quite reasonable, so you could be able... I'll put everything in the description box for you and links possibly of where to get things like this turntable. So the first thing we're going to do is move our turntable closer. I've got the non-slip mat that I showed you earlier. That's just to stop our cake drum from sliding all over the place when we're icing, because if you tried icing this cake without this, you really struggle, and this is why we're doing this video, so that you just get all the basics. So that goes on first, and I've got and you can find these in most shops. They're really cheap as well. So that goes on there, and then you obviously want clean hands. I've got my lovely buttercream icing in there. This is a Swiss meringue icing. I'll do another video later where I show you how to make this, and it's basically very good and silky. It's my favorite icing. It's so beautiful. No grit. It's amazing. And that's just the vanilla flavored one, and you could color it as well if you wanted to. Today we'll do something plain, just so that we make it easier for anybody that wants to get going. And I've got my spatula as well. They're quite good for scraping out everything, So we'll get a bit of icing. This is the first thing you do, actually. Get a bit of icing, put that there. That acts as a glue. And there we go. That's what our icing looks like. You just need a little bit. And sometimes if you've got, if you think it's still going to slide, I tend to just sort of, like to make it a friction-free surface. Honestly, that really works. And then the next thing I'll do is, with clean hands, I'll just bring them closer. And And I'll get my other plate, because I think a lot of us will have plates at home. In a professional baking kitchen, there'll be trays and there'll be all sorts, but I figured I would use just plates, things you would find in somebody's house. Put that one there, put that on the side. This is so easy. And if you can get, if you struggle with the edges of this plate, if you have something flatter, if that works for you, that's fine. So the best way of doing this is you hold the top of your cake with clean hands, washed hands, or gloves if you're that, that way inclined, and you cut obviously in the middle, but you keep going round because you can see where you're going. That's a really good tip. This is better than getting a knife and just going that way. So we'll keep turning because you can see where the middle is on each side. So we keep going. And then when you meet the other end, you go through the middle. That's a really good tip. And there we have our beautiful sponge. I'll put that there for now. So I'll use the flat part of the cake, which was the bottom of the cake. And that will be the very bottom as well, because it will give us that nice shape and that nice structure. So we just center that to hold on to our glue. And just so you know that that glue works, that's not falling off. That would easily slide off without it. The next thing, I have a glass here in case you're wondering what it's for. And I'll just get my icing bag. Move that out of the way. That's a really good tip as well. They do sell professional ones that you can use, but really you don't need them. Just use a drinking glass, a clean one obviously. Put your bag over it, like so. You get your buttercream, and in you go. You can use a spoon, a spatula, whatever it is you need to use. So at this point, if you wanted to add jam to your cake, you could. I tend not to unless I'm asked. But if you did, you'd just spread it on your cake nice and evenly and then just add it on. So we've got our buttercream in there now. I'm just gonna lift this up. If you feel there's still more room, you can just add a bit more. I deliberately didn't cut this bag just so that we don't make mess in the bottom of our drinking glass. So there we go now. I'll just give it a little snip. I've literally just cut, I don't know, an inch off the front of the bag. And that's our cake. If you've not got a turntable, I'll show you how to do that on the next layer. But for this layer, let's use a turntable. So we're literally just gonna start doing that. And if you've not done this before and it's looking complicated, just take your time and practice. The reason I'm using a piping bag is because I'll get even layers, because the piping bag, as long as I keep the pressure the same, I'll get the exact amount on all the cake. So we're going, I'm doing it faster because I do this all the time, but I should imagine if you're not used to it, you'd probably be, just keep it nice and simple. Just do that, that's still fine. And if you didn't have the turntable, I'll just move that to the side. You just put that there and just go around, really. That's done. Put that down for now. Put it back on the turntable because that's easier for me. And it will be easier for you as well. I'll get my favorite and we'll just level. I'm not gonna do that sort of swooshing action because I don't want to pick up any crumbs from the cake. We want to cut into the cake and have a nice layer of icing. So there we go. Just smoothing out the top, the spatula at an angle. And if you find that hard, just go over the top that way. but literally that's it. This is just to give it a nice even base. We'll get our next layer up. For this layer, this was the top of the cake. You notice that I've not cut the dome out. It didn't have a big dome actually because of the way we put the sponge in the tin. I'll just put the top facing onto the icing because the sponge on the top reveals a flatter surface. And then just make sure that you've centered your cake. You can do that by eye. That's it. So that was a technique with a piping bag, but I'll show you another one where you just use your spatula or a spoon or whatever it is you have if you want to, if you're desperate to try this and you don't have all these tools. So there we go. Just get our icing, a dollop there. Probably a bit more. Maybe that's too much. That's too much. Get a bit out, but just note that I'm not touching the cake because I don't want to take crumbs with me. And then you just smooth that on your cake, but you don't go down to the bottom of the sponge. You just want to move very smoothly on the top so that the cake crumbs do not come up. So whatever you do not bring the cake crumbs up, and then we'll just smooth that out. So the thing with this technique is, if you're new to baking, your layers may not be even. You may get more icing in the middle and maybe less in the sides of the cake, you know, more icing in the center. So the best one really is with a piping bag if you can. But if you don't mess about with piping bags, that's fine. So I'm just going round. I've taken a bit more again. And then I'll just smooth that so that we have a nice smooth layer. We'll do the same thing for the rest of the cake that we did earlier. If you want a flat plate or a tray, that's better. There we go. You can also get what they call cake levelers. I deliberately left them out of this video because this was literally just back to basics, this. And the cake levelers just help you level the cake out. It's like a little string and a handle, and you just go that way. But not everybody can use that, to be honest, if you're not very used to icing cakes. So that's our lovely sponge again. And then what I'll do this time, I'll do the opposite. So the first time round for the base, we had the bottom of the cake at the bottom so that we get that nice even circle from the cake. But this time we want the base to be at the top so that we have the nice flat layer of the base of the cake on the top of the cake. And I'll do the same thing. The top of the cake is that way. You get some spaces in there when you do it this way, but that all gets filled up with icing. So don't worry about that so much. So sometimes when you do this, you might find that the cake doesn't look the same size as the other one. That's just because we've turned the cake upside down. So the top part is a bit dome shaped. So that way it's not very even, but that all gets filled up with icing. And then we'll do the same thing. We'll use this method because I've got a feeling a lot of people prefer this because people don't like, maybe if you don't like messing about with an icing bag. So I've just got a dollop there, and then I'm spreading it but making sure my spatula doesn't hit the bottom of the sponge. We're literally just spreading it, letting the icing and the turntable do the work. I'm just guiding it. And I'm not getting crumbs in this because we want nice. And then just using the flat part of your spatula to just make it even so that you don't have a wonky cake. There we go. And then I'll get my last layer And the last layer always has what was the bottom of the pan on the top, because that makes it nice and flat. And then this is when you say, oh, how do you get your cakes nice and flat? That's pretty much, put that away. So that's pretty much, we've literally layered our cake now. And if you had different fillings, you could be putting them in the layers as you go. Just be cautious that sometimes fillings will make the cake slide. This is why we've kept this simple, especially jam tends to do that. And then what we'll do is I'll just get a little bit of icing and we'll try and cover I'll do it two ways. I'll do half of this cake. I'll show you how to do it with a spatula. And as you can see, I've already got crumbs on this spatula, and that's because we are just doing what we call a crumb coat in professional baking. So I won't mind whatever crumbs are going to go on the outside of this cake, because we'll cover them up later with a lovely layer of icing without the crumbs. So I'll do this side. You can see that. We've got like a semi-naked effect there, which is in now. You could leave the cake at that and that would be acceptable. That's in fashion now. That side. I'll do half of that way. And then I'll do the other half with the icing bag for people that will prefer that way. Just do that again. I'll give you links as well to the piping bags, because there's quite a lot out there and you want the ones that will help. This one has got a friction-free surface. That means it's not sliding all over the place when you're using it. So I'll just line the bottom. I'll turn it as well so that you can see. And then I'll just go in that way. And then we'll smooth all that out. Don't forget that this is not the actual final layer of the cake. This is just for us to seal the crumbs in, which is what you do in professional baking. But if you want to make a nice cake that you want to make look that good, you want to do this. I'll get my spatula and I'll just, there we go. So it doesn't matter that I've got the cake showing at this point, because literally it's just the crumbs that we want to seal in. And you can see the crumbs in there as well. And just note the angle that I'm holding the spatula at. You do it at whatever angle is comfortable for you. If you're left-handed, you can still do this. It. We get to the top now. We're not really worried about how the cake's looking at this point, but as you can see, we've already got more or less a flat top. It's nice and flat there at the top because of how we stacked our layers. In professional baking, professional bakers even use cake levelers, like you would use when you're, like builders would use an actual leveler, and they'll put it on the top of the cake to see how flat the top of the cake is. We're not doing that today because we want to just get proficient at icing a cake. As you can see, I'm stealing some icing from some parts and using it on others, because I don't add more from my bowl. I want to use what I've got already so that we can seal those crumbs in. So this is the point where you can go crazy with those crumbs, basically. You don't need to worry about them, because we'll chill this cake in the fridge for about 10 minutes. You can use the freezer as well. It won't affect your sponge. just a few minutes. Then that just means when you put your next layer on, you don't have crumbs everywhere. And that's it. So that's our first step. That's going to go in the fridge or freezer. If one of them is full, use the other. That's what I do. That's it. I'm not putting this back in because this got crumbs. So just those are things to think about. It looks like very simple, but it is a thing that you have to think about. So that's going in the fridge for 10 minutes, and then we'll come back and then put the other layer of icing. So our cake has been chilling in the freezer for about 10 minutes. That's our crumb coat. All the crumbs are sealed in. And if you touch it with very clean hands, I've washed these hands, you notice that the icing doesn't stick to you. There you go. That's just nice and clean. And all our crumbs are sealed in. There we go. So this just means that when we add the next layer of icing, everything's locked in and we won't have crumbs everywhere. Which I think is something that happens when people make cakes at home. You tend to have crumbs everywhere, but this is a technique that helps you seal all your crumbs in. So we'll do like we did before, either with the icing over the piping bag or with the spatula. I'll use the piping bag for this so that we can get a nice even layer around the cake. So I'll just start going that way just so that you can see it. Press a little harder, Nancy. There we go. And that's it. I'll move that closer. And then we'll keep going all the way up. And if you don't have a piping bag, I'll show you how to do that without one. I'm just going, I'm applying the same amount of pressure because that helps with the layers. And obviously stopping to regroup. There we go. This is so much easier. This works out a lot easier than using another method, but I'll still show you how to use another method. I'll leave a little bit on the top, and that's what we'll use for the, so we'll do that. Then for the other method with just a spatula, like we did before, you can just come in and just do that and keep going all around the cake. But if you use a piping bag, what happens with that is you're going to get even amount of icing everywhere as long as you're applying the same amount of pressure. So this is just another way of doing it with just a spatula. And if you're using the spatula, you can just do the same thing all the way up. There we go. Keeping an eye on my icing. Got enough. That's it. So I've got my scraper here, which I showed you earlier, and that's what I'll be using to scrape the sides of the cake to get a nice smooth finish. So don't hold your scraper at a 90-degree angle. You want it at roughly a 45-degree angle. And then you just move it with your turntable along the sides of the cake. Already we're starting to get the smooth finish. And then if your turntable is not very swift, you get some lines which sort of come along, that they are vertical lines, but you know, we'll keep going until we get the smooth finish we need. And then what we do is the parts that are, we can see the gaps, all you need to do is fill those again. And this is where your spatula comes in handy, because you just scrape that out with your spatula. I tend to use my bowl as my surface, or you can get a plate and just put that on. And then we'll get our piping bag and we'll fill out the bits that are... Now, if you're doing this for the first time, it may not start to look as smooth as this immediately, but just carry on, just be persistent, and it takes shape. So what we're doing now is filling out the parts that have got gaps in them. There we go. And then we'll do that again. I'm using the other side now. So this side will be a bit messy, but this is our mess that we've created from icing the cake. So there we go. So I don't have much room on my cake drum, but we discussed that earlier. You can always just get one that is bigger than your actual cake and keep going. So one hand is moving the turntable like so, and the other one is moving the scraper. And we're just going, and that's smoothing our cake out. Now, because this is just so that people know how to ice a basic cake, we won't go as far as making it super smooth. I'm going to show you a technique on how to decorate this cake in a way that you won't be overwhelmed, it won't be too time consuming. So what I'll do next is, to start with, I'll even out the top. I'll scrape that, use that later. And then we just want all the icing that's there, we just want to bring it in like that. So already we're getting a nice smooth surface. In the cake world, sharp corners are a thing. You get so many points for that, but you know, we're doing this to learn how to ice, so we won't worry about having sharp edges or anything like that. We just want to be able to ice the cake and be happy that we've done a decent job. So this will still have some fine lines and it won't be very smooth, but let's just watch it come together. So let's keep going. So, you know, this is why we need a turntable, because it just does a brilliant job. There we go. And if you didn't have a turntable, same technique. I'll just show you, only take me a few seconds. So suppose you didn't have a turntable, you could literally just smooth your cake and you just keep just turning it as you go. It's a little bit harder, so if you could get one, that would help. I think you find loads of different ones in different shops. I'm just moving this to the edge so I can pick it up. You find lots of different types in different shops out there, and some supermarkets have them in as well. We'll just smooth that out a little bit more at the same angle. The more you keep going, the smoother it gets, and each time you see gaps, just fill them in with some more icing. It is hard work, but it's worth it when you want to do a really good finish. So there we go. So just keep filling the holes in and just scraping as you go. Just be cautious though, if you keep doing it, sometimes it messes your cake up. So if you get a nice smooth finish, as nice as possible, just leave it at that, because you could go on forever, for days basically. So this is our smooth finish, and you know, we'll try and get the top. This is just me trying to be perfect. You don't have to do this. I'm just trying to get those nice edges, you know. That's it. You can just use your spatula for this, like I did earlier. And there we go. So that's not necessarily the best, but it's decent for somebody that's just learning and trying to get their grip on icing a cake. I've got a comb here. Your other option is, if you find it's not as smooth as you wanted it to be, just use your cake comb around the cake, and that's perfect. That gives a good finish. I won't use this today because I've got something simpler. I'll use the edge of my scraper, and all I'll do is, as I'm turning the turntable, I'll be going up and down in waves with the scraper, and that way it just produces a beautiful design, and I'll let you see that. So there we go. We'll start there, and I'm just going up and down. Don't be afraid to do this. It may look messy to start with, but you know, it's worth it. If you were making a child's cake and you were probably doing I don't know, water with blue icing, this would be it. You'd create that effect. So I'm just going, literally. There's parts that are sticking out, don't worry about those. We'll sort those out in a minute. That's our wave pattern. And I've got these parts that are sticking out, just literally just grip them with the corner of the scraper. So this is good enough, but not perfect. We're not there yet. So we want that nice cake because we want to do a good job. Just tidy it up a bit more. on the top. Getting there. So what I'll do next is I'll get my sprinkles. These are just the sugar pearls. There's so many that you can get out there. And you can also get tools, which I do have, but I was trying to keep this really simple for today. You can get tools that are, they're like little forceps, and then you just use them to put on the cake. But we've got nice and clean hands, so we'll just use that today. So nice clean hands, and then we'll just put our sugar pearls there. I've got 2 types, that's nearly running out. Oopsie. And then I'll just put them in a little bowl here. And what I'll do is I'll literally throw them on. A few here, and there we go. And let's start doing this. This is so easy. You want to do this when the icing is fresh, so we can't do this on a chilled cake. You want this on the icing as soon as you put it on, because what happens when you chill your cake is your icing is as hard as it was when we got the cake out earlier, if you remember. So I'm just using my hands and I'm just throwing them on. If your icing is if your icing is firm rather, that means this won't work. So you need your icing nice and fresh. And there we go. So you can see already that design. This could even be a dress if you had a Barbie doll there, or it could be anything. It could be water, like I said earlier. These could be waves. Oops, we've got some escaped pearls there. There we go. And if you wanted it yellow, that would look nice. If you had a Beauty and the Beast theme, you could just go crazy with it. And then I've got the bigger pearls, and I'll just position them in strategic points, just so that, because I don't have a lot of them, but also I think it will have a better effect when we've not got too many anyway. Just on different points of the cake. Oopsie. There we go. That's part of icing, by the way, dropping things everywhere. And then last one. Eeny, meeny, miny, whatever. There we go. That's it. And we just need to just finish the top off. And that's the next thing we're going to do now. And that's it. There we have it, our lovely decorated cake. And I'm hoping you appreciate how simple it's been, because I didn't want to overwhelm anybody, because I was aiming at people that can bake a cake but would like to learn how to ice. So this is nice and simple. This is a good place to start. We'll just finish the top off. I'll use my cake comb from earlier, if you remember that from earlier. And we'll literally just scrape the top of the cake with the end of the comb at the edge of the cake. And we'll just go in one sweeping movement or two. So I'll just pull the cake out gently. We don't have much room. And then I'll just show you a close-up of what the top looks like. That's so simple. You could even do that with a fork, actually. There we go. If you wanted to handle the cake a bit more, I would advise you to chill it so that you don't have dents everywhere, and then you can pick your cake up again. So that's what we do when you're making professional cakes. The fridge is your best friend with buttercream. You have to keep going in and out depending on what stages you're at with the cake. So at this point, the cake's nearly done. I've just got one little finishing touch. The icing on the cake, as they say. And I'll probably just get a little blob of icing. Just put a little bit there. And I've got a little flower here. And there they are. Just simple. And also these are just artificial flowers, but anytime you're putting something on the cake that will go inside, make sure it's food safe. So I tend to use a straw or a dowel and cocktail sticks. So that's gonna go in the cake, and then we know that's food safe. So that's going in. We just want a nice simple finish, just something. This blob, we'll use it for something else in a second. So I'll put that in, and I'll make sure that's not showing. There we go. And I'll put that, just something really simple. And you can do whatever you want. You can use cake toppers that say happy birthday. You can do all sorts of things. Just push that in. How's that? And I've also got a nice little butterfly there. There we go. I'll just fold that up and I'll just put that there just to finish this off. Oh, gorgeous. Look at that. There we have it, our beautiful yet simple decorated cake. That looks gorgeous. I'm hoping you can try this with confidence and make one yourself for your next big event. And thank you very much for watching.